Hey guys, back with a quick video about jerkbait fishing. So it's something I've started doing just in the last year and a half, and I've quickly noticed a couple ways to do this. You can either do the traditional way, which I think is a casting rod and a baitcaster, or I think maybe the less conventional way, or something that I see a lot up here in Minnesota, is the spinning rod and spinning reel. And I'm going to try to explain my opinion on why I think what are the positives and the negatives of both of them. Okay, so right here, this isn't. Oh, that's cool. So right here is the Orochi XX whip snake. Now this is a drop shot rod or just general finesse rod from Megabass, right? This is a spinning rod. It's a 6'11". It's an F3. But I find a lot of people recommending this rod actually for jerk baits or small moving baits like an Okashira screw head or small spark shads on just a regular Okashira head, or even like a small popper. I could see somebody throwing on. And I've got this paired up with a Daiwa Kage 2500. And this has got 10-pound Suffix 131 to a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. And that's kind of where I like to land on the spinning side. Definitely braid to a leader. Definitely don't go heavier than like 15 pounds on the braid, and leader I try to stick between 12 and under. So between 12 and 7 I would probably say. But so this rod is very versatile. And we all know Megabass makes a fantastic reaction bait rod. So, but the fact is this rod is a jerkbait. Now, being that it's not a jerkbait rod, excuse me. It is a drop shot rod or a Ned rig rod. And they do have a technique specific jerkbait rod in the spinning lineup, which is the 6'8" Ronin. It's a F4. This is an F3. But what I think this does, and I haven't fished the Ronin yet, and I don't know if I will, but what the whip snake does is allows for a longer cast. It's got a little bit of a snappier motion than my casting rod right now that I'm using for jerkbaits, because I'm trying to figure out which is my preference. But regardless of what happens between these two rods, I'll show you the other one in a minute. The whip snake is staying in my arsenal, guaranteed. That's just a phenomenal rod, and I'm excited to have it. Right? So, but what makes this such a great rod is it's that's a little bit more sensitive and a little bit stiffer, because it's more of a how do I say it? It's more of a single hook bait rod. It's a little bit crisper when you get those snaps and you're trying to get that erratic action from the jerkbait. This is where I think the whip snake actually excels. And of the two rods that I have, it's a little bit more of a true fast action, so it doesn't have that sponginess, but it still loads up well. I actually haven't caught a ton of fish on it yet, but when I do hook up, it loads well. It keeps the fish pinned, and as long as your drag is set properly, you're going to land those fish. What I don't like is, having on the bottom side of the rod, and that's one thing I really struggle with when it comes to jerkbait fishing on a spinning rod, is having this weight. And that's why, like, you see people going to like 2500s or maybe trying to keep it at 3000 for you, and is to keep that weight down on spinning rods. Because for the longest time, I think that's been a drawback to spinning rods, is just the weight of the reel itself. But so, and this is just, it's got a good length, so you're going to be able to make good long casts. Like I was fishing some 110 juniors yesterday. I was throwing them on my casting and my spinning because I wanted to test them. But this is this, like, we all know the size comparison between the 110s, juniors, and the full-size 110s, right? So, but what you're getting in these baits is an action that's very unique, I'm going to call it, because I think of a lot of all the jerk baits, this one has like the best like front end stall because it just kind of like, it just darts and then it just stays there and sits in the water, right? So I'm not here to talk about the 110 or the 110 junior, but I'm here to talk about those baits because that's what I fish, right? And you get a little bit more of that sharper and crisper action out of the bait when you have a little bit of that faster action versus that spongier rod, okay? So that is my spinning rod and reel. My baitcaster is the Megabass Trizza Grills. It's a 6'8", so it's 6'8". It's an F3, which they call it a medium. I'd say it's more of a medium light, and it's a medium fast or a mod fast action. Now, this rod is paired up with a Zillion. It's the JDM version. It's a 7-1, but it's spooled with 12-pound sunline, right? That's my go-to line besides one of my reels. And I've actually caught a few fish on this for jerkbait fishing. They say it's a treble hook bait rod, and I would definitely agree with that. It doesn't have a whole lot of power in it when you hook fish, but it does load up well. It does keep them pinned, and you're not gonna like struggle to bring a fish in. The only thing that I'm gonna critique this rod on is the fact that it's a medium fast or a moderate fast action, because you have that bit of sponginess, and it allows to keep treble hook baits pinned in fish, but it also, like, it's hard to know if you've got like a 2 or 3 pounder or you got a 4 or 5 pounder on. It's the same reason why, like, if you fish the Tatuli Elite Seth Fighter jerkbait rod, like it produces great action in the jerkbaits, but like you can't tell what size fish you have on. It's just too spongy, I guess is the way I'd say it. But otherwise, it will handle the 110s and the juniors just fine in terms of casting. Even with a 12-pound line, if I wanted to drop down, I could go to 10, 8, or 7 on this, and I could still get good distance. So, and actually I don't get the fatigue with the baitcaster like I do with the spinning. So that is jerkbait fishing for me, right? I have 2 rods right now, and I'm trying to figure out which one I like more. And I can tell you already, like the one downside is having that spinning reel sitting on the bottom of that spinning rod, and I get a little bit of fatigue in my wrists, and I just get, I don't know. It's just something that I notice when versus when I'm fishing spinning versus casting, right? So I haven't thrown a full-size 110 on my whip snake yet, but that'll happen probably tomorrow because I'm going fishing. Today is the 23rd, so tomorrow is the 24th, and I'll probably be fishing these baits. So yeah, I got the full-size 110s and I got the juniors. But so there isn't really a wrong way, in my opinion, to throw a jerkbait, whether it's a casting or it's a spinning. Now, when it comes to line size, that's a whole different category. In my opinion, I don't think you should be going over, for these baits, 12 pound, right? If you're going up to 14, 16 pound and a medium heavy rod, I don't think you're gonna have a good day jerkbait fishing. So, just food for thought, guys. Always try to understand why you're doing a technique and how you want to fish it, because like some of the stuff, like it's getting to the point where it's like, oh, you can almost do it on a spinning rod, or you can almost do it on a baitcaster. You can do it, or you can do it both ways. Now there are still some techniques and that like a spinning rod is superior. And some of those I think right now are jerkbaits. No, not jerkbaits, excuse me. Drop shot, Neds, wacky rigs, and small finesse applications. Like I would never think of throwing a screw head or my small Kitech jig heads with their swim baits on them on a baitcaster. I just wouldn't do that. So anything like that 3-inch and down, like anything like below that 3.5-inch line, I am definitely throwing on a spinning rod. So just something you want to think about when you're looking at rods and reels and you're trying to determine what works best. It's okay to try some stuff. It's okay to figure out and like play with equipment and like see what happens. Like if I have to get down and I need to throw a smaller jerkbait and like the fish are just that finicky, then I have a spinning rod that can do that. But if I need to bump up to a heavier line, or I just want to run straight fluoro, and I'm throwing the full size 110s because that's what they're eating and they won't touch the 110 juniors, then I want a baitcaster that can do that. But I mean, regardless of what you choose, like those are the best options out there, right? So if there's a brand of rods that you're loyal to and you want to try to figure out like what works and what doesn't, or if they have a rod that can do this, then look at that rod. Look at those brands. I know a lot of people rave about certain rods being great technique specific, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot to play with out there. Get your hands on stuff, like pair it with a reel, and just understand that like you can make this decision on your own, but it can be difficult. So use the resources out there. All right, thank you and have a good day. Bye. GoPro, turn off. GoPro, stop recording.